This week, the topic is incest. So let's try to talk about this without throwing up in our mouths. Incest. Sorry, guys. But it's a great topic to discuss because I think we all suffer from incest to some degree. I'm not talking about physical incest, though. Although I may be, in some respects. Mostly I'm talking about emotional incest, the feeling of codependence, of enmeshment, particularly with our parents, but any family member. Although sometimes these emotions, these incestuously emotional relationships, it can be almost as gross as a physically incestuous relationship. I have a great story from a former client of mine. Did I say foreign client? A former client of mine. Don't worry, I have his permission to tell this story, and I got his permission because it's a great story. But he was in an incestuous relationship with his mom when he was growing up. He's an older guy now. But he went to a new codependent group therapy, but he tried out a new group. That was the idea. He went somewhere, he tried out a new group, and he walked into this codependence group therapy, and he got along really great. He's like, yeah, I'm really resonating with everybody talking about what everybody's talking about here. But at the end of the therapy, he found out that it was actually an incest survivors therapy. Even though he was never a victim of physical incest, there was so much emotional incest with his mom, so much codependence, so much enmeshment that he actually resonated emotionally very well with people who were actually the victims of physical incest. It's funny now because he's gotten over it, and he has a very good sense of humor about it. I guess it's not funny. It's funny in the sense that all tragedy is funny to some degree, right? Given enough time, given enough processing and perspective. But emotional incest, to the extent to which we are tied to our parents, we need to feel like we need to placate them, like we need to validate them. We don't think about our needs first, we think about their needs. What's going to make mommy happy? How can I make daddy proud? This is really holding a lot of normal people back who, don't even consider incest in any serious way. I think we are all affected by incest in this respect in some degree, and it's really important to get this right, because without this, we're never going to be able to grow and change and get whatever we want in our life. Money, women, status, capability, respect for ourselves first and foremost. We're never going to be able to get that until we can truly break free from incestuous relationships. So that's the intro. What's the cause of incestuous relationships? Well, it starts with the parents. Typically, they don't have their own emotional lives together. They don't have a firm boundary. And when we're talking about codependence and enmeshment, we're ultimately talking about a weak boundary. So the parents have a weak boundary, and they put a lot of emotional stress, I guess you could say, emotional load onto their children. They treat their children like adults emotionally before they are adults. So this happens a lot in divorces, single parent homes. The parent doesn't have a healthy relationship with an adult, so they treat their child like they're the adult. They have emotionally intimate relationships with their child that they really shouldn't be having. So they may be talking about their relationship. So if it's a single mom, then she could be talking about her relationship with the child's dad, and oh, what a jerk your father is, and oh, never be like this. That is inappropriate for a child. Or you'll even have single parents talking about their sexual relationships with their child. Now we're starting to see, the Venn diagram overlap. There's emotional incestuous relationships, physically incestuous, and there's a lot of icky, throw up in your mouth overlap there. That's the cause of it. And then the child takes that on, and he feels like he needs to exist for his mom. He needs to exist for his father. You need to make them feel a certain way. And this really, inhibits adult development, because if you can't have an honest, open relationship with your parents, how are you going to ever be able to have an honest, open relationship with other people? These are the models. These two relationships create the most imprint. So how we act in these relationships are going to inform, to a large extent, how we end up acting in relationships outside the family. So it's incumbent on us. Any incestuous emotional relationship that you have with your mom or dad, it's not your fault. But now that you're an adult, now that you're over 13, now that you have some sort of conceptual faculty, it is your responsibility to do something about it. And ultimately, the super enlightened view is it's nobody's fault. These relationships, it's nobody's fault from a psychological perspective. From a philosophical perspective, it's somebody's fault. But from a psychological perspective, it's nobody's fault. It's all about who's responsible for what. Now that you feel like you're responsible for your father's happiness, for your mother's happiness, and you're over the age of 13, it's your responsibility to do something about it. So what do? Well, you take whatever you're hiding from your parents and you are open with them about that. For a lot of people, it's their parents' religious beliefs. They don't feel like they could ever be honest about any sort of disagreement that they have with their parents about their religious beliefs. For other people, it's resentment. You still have a lot of resentment towards your mother or father, and you don't feel like you can bring this up because it's going to hurt their feelings. Well, it is going to hurt their feelings, but also it's going to hurt your feelings, and that's probably the ultimate reason why you don't want to bring it up. Also, bringing up resentment is not a bad thing. It's a healthy thing. You're broaching a connection for a more honest, open relationship. You're not trying to make your mom or dad wrong, but if you want to get over this emotional incest, you got to talk about those really uncomfortable things. Like maybe they did something when you were growing up and you still blame them for it. Well, a great way over this is to first recognize how you blame them, get specific about it, talk about it, process it. This is what we do in therapy. These unconscious emotions, resentment, I would call that anger that you're holding on to. It's unconscious, but not totally unconscious. It's probably about here. This is where resentment is. I'll just draw it in. Resentment's probably around here. Depression would be more down here. And you need to be honest about these things with your parents. And that's, what's going to happen there. You know what happens here when you really start to break is mom cries. That's what happens here. Mom begins to cry, and we don't want to see our mom cry, so we just don't bring it up. But the sad, it's not sad. It's not even unfortunate. It's fine, but it's just a fact of growing up that your mom needs to cry. You know who else needs to cry? Who else needs to cry? What else is going on here is you need to cry. You think you don't want your mom to cry, but ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to cry. Because when you separate from your mom, for instance, you're not going to be mommy's good boy. If you're a woman and you separate from your dad, you're not going to be daddy's little girl, and it's going to fundamentally change the relationship. Any sort of comfort that you get from your mom or your dad, it's not going to be there anymore. And I think your body is not well adjusted to that because you're so used to getting comfort from these people. That's an incestuous relationship. After 7 or 8, your parents aren't there for comfort anymore. Not primarily. There's always going to be some comfort there, but primarily they're not there for comfort. So you're doing this right. You're separating correctly when your mom cries and when you cry. But the big picture here is, look, you're never going to be able to change. You're never going to get what you want until you can do this. And I don't care what self-help books you read. I don't care what life hacking, this is how you manage a business, this or that. It doesn't matter. It's not going to matter unless you can really separate. And this is, I'm going to erase this. This is Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, Hero with 1,000 Faces. We've all read that, right? This is it. You start here, you end here. Separation. This is the first act, and it's a 3 or 4 act play. The midpoint of the story is here. I would call this the second act. This is the third act, and this is the return. This is the fourth act. Sometimes you can just combine 2 and 3, make this the second act, and then this is the third act. I like splitting them up into 4 acts because I like a good midpoint. what happens at the midpoint of the story, whether it's a movie, a play, or your life? Things get serious, right? You're having fun here. This is Neo in the Matrix learning Kung Fu. Oh, this is fun. The trailer, it made this movie look fun. Everybody's having fun here. No, it gets serious. Death is on the line. Then we have the atonement, apotheosis, and the ultimate boon. And then you take the boon back to your original state as represented by your original world, your ordinary world. But this is where separation from the parents happen. That early in the story. So if you still feel like you're responsible for your mom, if you don't want to make your mom cry, I don't want to hurt my dad's feelings, you're still here. You are here. And you're never going to have all the fun in the trailer. You're never going to meet somebody of the opposite sex, same sex. If you're gay, it doesn't matter, but different polarity. It's still, the principle's still the same. Yeah, where do you meet a girl? Probably around here. This is seizing the sword. And guys think, girls, they're always on their phones. You can't, girls, they're on Tinder or whatever. Whatever complaint you have about girls, you know why? Because you're here and you're trying to pretend like you're here. You have to separate. You have to be you have to be emotionally stable unto yourself, not relying on your parents, not getting any sort of emotional payoff from making your dad feel good about himself or making your mom not cry. And then you go here, you complain about, Tinder, and girls are always on their phone. Whenever I go talk to a girl, she's always on their phone. No girl's approachable. None of them, this, that, whatever. All these complaints, but the real reason is you're here and you're trying to pretend like you're here. And women with their intuition, which I guess is more powerful than a man's intuition, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but they definitely trust it more. You're trying to pretend like you're here in Act 3, but she can tell you're here, having your dove and hawk debate. I don't want to hurt my mom's feelings, or that's not very nice. Do I have to be so mean? It doesn't work. This is everybody's story. Thank you, Joseph Campbell, for pointing that out. We don't all we don't all hit all the markers of this story, but generally this is what happens. And if you do not separate from the parents, you're never going to move on. It's never going to happen for you. You got to do this first. Read whatever self-help, business development, sales. This is how you make more sales. Who cares? If you don't get past this stage, you're still going to be a child. And that only comes when we separate from our parents. Thank you for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe. Talk about these issues. I know nobody wants to talk about incest, but it is helpful to consider to the extent that we do still have an incestuous relationship with our parents, even if it makes us throw up in our mouths a little bit.